Hello, my name is Mon, and this is my data analysis project on the Social Security Administration's popular names list from the years 1880 to 2022. The first half of this video is going to be more quantitative with graphs of like trends and numbers and stuff, whereas the second half is probably just going to be me geeking out about some cool names that I found and looking at the associations between pop culture and names. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so this next section of my slideshow is just me kind of randomly graphing names that have a strong association to fictional characters. And these are mostly the ones that never reach the top 1,000, like ones that you might not, ones that don't have the biggest impact. Most of these I just kind of stumble across, but a few of them I seeked out, and you'll see the first couple are from like very popular fandoms, starting with the name Eleven. Now this one obviously comes from the Stranger Things character Eleven. She looks a little evil here, but she's not a villain. She's one of the main protagonists, and her name is literally just the number that was tattooed on her wrist because her name kind of was taken away from her when she got like abducted at birth. Her real name is Jane, but everyone just calls her 11 because that's the number that's on her. Stranger Things started airing in July of 2016, and this first point here with 7 girls named 11 is 2016. And it goes up a little bit from there. This was 2019, and it's worth knowing that in July of 2019, Stranger Things Season 3 was released. And this orange line shows that 2 years later, there were a couple of boys also named 11. So this highest point is only 12. So there's not that many, but there definitely was an impact from the show Stranger Things. The next name I looked up was Khaleesi, which this is one that I kind of already knew was used a couple times as a name. She's a character in Game of Thrones, and I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but I think she's like a princess or something. This is her. Game of Thrones started airing in 2011, and that's what this first point is. It's just maybe around 25 that first year, but it goes up sharply from there, and it ended in 2019. And this point right here is 2019. So it peaked in 2018, and the show ended in 2019, and then it went down from there. But apparently, Khaleesi means warlord in the fictional language of Dothraki. Then I looked up the name Daenerys, who is apparently the same person as Khaleesi. And this one doesn't really have a meaning provided, it's just another made-up name. There's also a couple hundred little Daenerys running around, but it never reached quite the same popularity as Khaleesi. Because Khaleesi went up to a little over almost 600, and this one goes up to 170-ish. And there's even a little blip where there were 5 boys named Daenerys, but if you look at these two, they're the same shape. There's more Khaleesi's, and so it's a little taller at points, but it is the same shape. They both peaked in 2018, went down in 2019, farther down in 2020, and is coming back now. The only difference is that there have been no male Khaleesi's. The third one is another Game of Thrones character, Arya. She is the daughter of a lord and a lady, so I don't really know what that position's called. There's no meaning provided in the realm of Game of Thrones, but Arya is an Indian name that means Aryan and noble. This first point here, this is 2011 when Game of Thrones started airing, and everything before that is explainable by the fact that this is still an Indian name, but it has the same peak in 2018 or 2019 that Daenerys and Khaleesi do, and it's even a very similar shape. I'll let you think that this is 2018, this is 2019, but I mean, it's still a very similar shape. It's got that kind of year when it slowed down a little bit, but it still continued largely upward. But it doesn't seem that there was much of an impact on the males from Arya. If anything, it kind of went down a little bit. And the next name is Anakin, which is the real first name of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. He's the main character of the Star Wars prequels, which was a set of 3 movies, the first in 1999 and the last in 2005. And as Darth Vader, he's the main villain of the first 3, but he's like a little boy, I think, in the first prequel, and then he grows up into this guy in like the last one or something. I haven't seen them in a while. I don't know where these little Anakins came from, but where it jumps all the way up here, that's 1999. So I don't know if Anakin was like in the 70s Star Wars movies, but I mean, this is 1999, so there's definitely a big jump there. Went down a little bit. This one is 2005, which is the 3rd movie. Those are the 2 movies, and then it's gone up from there. And I know they're still making Star Wars like content. I don't know if Anakin Skywalker still has anything to do with it, but that's just something interesting. And there's even a couple female Anakins down here. I got curious for a second. I didn't even think to look up Skywalker, but there's no data for anyone named Skywalker. The next one is Darth, which is the title of the Sith Lord Darth Vader in the Star Wars films. The first one being released in 1977, and there are still movies released. I know there's another character named Darth Maul, so this one I think is maybe similar to Khaleesi in that it's like a title and not necessarily a name in the universe it's from. And this doesn't really have any meaning provided. As you can see, there's only 3 years of data. The first one being 1977 when there were 7 boys named Darth, then 1978 with 13, and then 1979 with 7 or wait, no, that's 9, this is 7, and then it goes back down to under 5. So we don't really have any data for that. Moving into Harry Potter, let's look at the name Severus. He's a main character in the Harry Potter series, with the first book being released in 1997 and the first movie being released in 2001. He's an antagonist of the series. I mean, like, I haven't seen the Harry Potter movies in a while. I do know that each book, I think, has an antagonist, but he's kind of like overall, he's like the main teacher. Severus means stern in Latin. First book was released around here, and the first movie around here. It doesn't jump up to 5 when we actually can see the data until 2011, which is the same year that Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was released. And I haven't seen that movie in a while. I think that's the last one. I don't remember. I mean, does Snape die in that one? Maybe that's why people started naming their kids Severus. It's a big jump from 2015 to 2016. Okay, I just googled like Harry Potter 2016 movie, and because I remember they're making like prequels, and so this was the year that Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which I think is the first one, came out. I'm looking if he's like the main character of that, and it's not telling me that specific movie. But I mean, if you've seen that movie and you know Snape is in it, then that is 100% why there is a big jump here. If not, then I don't know. Then we have Hermione. She's also a main character in the Harry Potter series, and she's one of the main 3 protagonists. And the name Hermione means cairn. Cairn is like a stack of rocks used for burial purposes. I mean, this is a name. Like Severus is more of a word, but Hermione's a name. As you can see, there were a couple Hermiones around, born in the 1910s, a couple born between the 50s and the 70s. But then Harry Potter comes out, and this first dot here is 2001, the year the first movie was released, and then it jumps up after that. And it's been kind of slow. It's been slowly increasing up till its peak in 2022 so far, with nearly 120 Hermiones born. Okay, the last Harry Potter name is Draco, who is another main character, but he's the main antagonist that is a student. And Draco means dragon or serpent in Greek. And I mean, he's in Slytherin. Slytherin is like the snake house. So kind of obvious if you think about it. The first book was released in 1997. And unlike the other characters, there's actually Dracos that were born in 1997. And in 2001, it went up a little bit. This is 2001. It just kept increasing. And I think this is 2011. It looks like when the last movie was released, and that's when it reached its peak. Well, that's when it reached its first peak. It's actually gone way up after that. Is there still Harry Potter movies being released with these kids? Okay, I can't find if there was a 2021 Harry Potter movie, but it does seem that in 2022, which is like this point, there was a like 20th anniversary thing that happened. I don't really know. I haven't watched the Harry Potters in years. Okay, this next one is actually 2 different names. So as I was importing all this data, I just had Frasier on in the background, and that got me thinking because, I mean, I knew Frasier was a character. I'd never really heard the name outside of his character. So when I finally got my formula working, I put in Frasier as it's spelled on the show to see what the popularity was. And there's only just a couple of blips. It doesn't really go too far above 5, so there's probably like maybe a handful in these in-between years. Frasier Crane was a character that was introduced on Cheers in 1984, and then he later got his own show called Frasier that aired from 1993 to 2004. Frasier is a variant of Fraser with no I, which is a Scottish surname with an unknown meaning. There's a couple meanings you can probably find on the internet, but it's a little unclear exactly what it means. Here's 1984, no data for that year, but then there's the first blip in 1990, and then there's a couple following that, including one in 1994, which is a year after Frasier's show started. And as for these recent ones, since it ended in 2004, which is about here, I don't really know how to explain those. Maybe people are like watching reruns, the kids who grew up watching Frasier are having kids here. I don't know. I can't say for sure what that is. I know there was just a Frasier reunion, but that was in 2023, and we don't even have the data for 2023 yet. And as for Maris, unlike Frasier, is definitely a more common name, as you can see in the blue. It's a name that means of the sea, and on Frasier, she's actually never seen. We only know about her through anecdotes from her husband Niles Crane, who's Frasier's brother. And I wanted to look at this because I always kind of liked the name Maris, even before I watched this show, but it's never reached the top 1,000. It's never been all that common. And you can see this graph only goes up to like 65. And I don't know what this first peak here, what this jump here in the like 1940 is, but this is 1993 and this is 1994. That's a big jump, and I think we have to attribute that in some part to the show Frasier. Maybe people aren't naming their kid Maris after the unseen character of Maris Crane, especially because she's kind of portrayed negatively, like a difficult person to be around, but maybe the show brought the name to people's attention, and they're watching Frasier, they hear the name Maris, they think, oh, that's a nice name, and then they have a daughter and they name her Maris. This is all speculation, but I think we definitely have to attribute some of this big jump of the number of Marises born to the show Frasier, especially because with the exception of this one point around like 2003, it's entirely above all the other Marises that were ever born. Okay, this next one can actually be seen if you just look at the top 1000 on like a name website. Ariel is the main character in the Disney movie The Little Mermaid, which came out in 1989. She's just a mermaid who becomes a human, and Ariel means Lion of God in Hebrew. It came out in 1989. It looks like it's 1989. And it does make sense. It's higher than the one below, but it's still a little low. And that's because the movie was released in November of 1989. So there wasn't a whole lot of time after its release for people to be naming their kids after it. But the big jump in 1990 and 1991 are still immediately following that movie. And after that, it does start to go down a little bit. I know there were other Little Mermaid movies released. I don't think there's one that specifically correlates with the second jump here. I mean, the jump is literally in the thousands. From 1989, the year it was released, there's maybe 1,300 Ariels born that are girls. And then a year later, there's like 3,600 Ariels born that are girls. And the male one's a lot less of a jump because in the movie she's a girl, but Ariel is kind of, it seems, a gender neutral name, or at least unisex. And so both genders do see a jump there, and another jump here around 2006, and then another jump around 2016, 2015. Okay, so the next name is Merida, and I already brought this one up when we were talking about the Disney princesses, and the meaning of this name is a little unclear. It's possibly Spanish, meaning victory of Augustus, possibly Latin, meaning one who has achieved a place of high honor. The movie Brave, featuring the main character Merida, came out in 2012. If we look here, this first point here, with about 20 Meridas after several years of negligible number of Meridas being born, is close to 20. And then the year following that, it jumps up nearly 100. Then it kind of goes down, and it went up again there. I don't know why, but it's been going down since the movie came out. But that's still a massive jump from it just kind of popping up every once in a while. And then back here in 1880, there's 5 boys named Merida. I'm not sure why, honestly. I just tried Googling 1880 Merida and getting mixed Spanish results. It seems it might be a place in Spain or some Spanish-speaking country. I don't know. I don't know why these Meridas in 1880 were named that. The next one we're going to look at is Pebbles, which is the name of the baby Flintstone on the Flintstones. The character was introduced in 1963, a few years into the show run, which only ran a few more years after that. But then the show was revived in the 70s. And so the Flintstones takes place in caveman times. And so when naming a baby after a rock kind of makes sense for a cartoon. But you can see, here we have 1963, the year Pebbles Flintstone was introduced. And it kind of goes down, peaks again in around the 70s when it seems it was revived. But this peak which kind of first jumps up in 1987, could be explained by a Jetsons crossover that aired in 1987. There were also 1994, which is here is 1994, so it's went down after that, and seems the movie didn't have much of an effect. And then when you reach 2000, it's still going down, and it's since kind of died out after coming back in 2014. Then we have the name Wednesday, who is the daughter in the Addams Family franchise. I haven't seen the original, but I mean, I can't imagine Wednesday is like a bad character, but more just like a little troublemaker with a decapitated doll. It first aired in 1964 when it comes up here, and it aired till 1966, so till about here when it starts to go down again. Then in 1973, around here, it has another small peak, and then it airs there's another show in 1992, which causes it to go up again. It aired for like 2 years. And then at the end of the 90s, around here, there was another show, The New Addams Family. There were also a couple movies, one in 1991 around here, one in 1993, which was actually the same year. There was also a 2019 movie, which came out around here, as well as a 2021 movie, which is this other peak here. And maybe you've heard of the show Wednesday, which aired in 2022, and it's this version of Wednesday. So it aired in November 2022, so it maybe didn't have enough time to cause that much of an impact within that same year. However, I do expect that in 2023, there will be a big jump in the number of Wednesdays simply because it was a really popular show when it came out. A lot of people were talking about it. However, in the 2022 show called Wednesday, she's a teenager. She's more grown up and she gets sent to a boarding school, whereas the other Wednesdays are just kind of like little girls who maybe get into trouble or something. But I'm definitely interested to look at it when the 2023 names come out. What impact does the show Wednesday have on this graph? Like, how much higher will it go, or will it even go higher at all? Will it go lower? All right, so this next name is Indiana, and I only added this one because I had Indiana when I was talking about the states in the part 1 video. But I was surprised that there were so many Indianas, but I completely forgot about the character of Indiana Jones. And so Indiana Jones is the main character in the Indiana Jones franchise, which was first released in 1981. Indiana, as a state name, means Land of the Indians. However, because Indiana is a state name, it did have some uses, although only female uses, like way before the movie was released and up until 1956. And so this first point here is 1982, which is the year after the movie was released, and it has had an overall increase. It hasn't gone back off the graph since then, except for once in 1984. The first movie was released in June of 1981, and so the first point is 1982. There's another movie released in 1984, which is when it dropped off the graph with less than 5 occurrences, but the year after that movie, which was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, it comes back though. But the interesting thing here is with the release of the first 2 movies, all the Indianas being born are girls, much like all the previous Indianas. But Indiana Jones is a man. And there isn't male data for Indiana until 1990, which is the year after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was released. That's when boys are finally getting the name Indiana. There was also a movie in 2008, which seems to be this next peak up here. It kind of zigzags because there's never that many Indianas. The most recent Indiana Jones movie was released in 2023, which we don't have data for, but the girls has really gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years. With about maybe 115 girls named Indiana born in 2021. Boy Indiana peaked in about 2019 and has gone down since then. But I do find it very interesting that although Indiana Jones is a man, his influence was largely on girls' names. Okay, this final section isn't really any data. It's just interesting names I came across when I was importing my data. I made this list because I was like scrolling through thousands of names. I would just scroll really fast. I had to get to the bottom. And sometimes I would just kind of stop in the middle and see what interesting names there were. I started it because in 1880 there were 5 boys named Wood, and that I found that really funny for some reason, so I wrote it down. I just compiled a list of the most interesting ones that I wanted to know what they meant, or I wanted to know more about it as a name. And the following slides are just those names and some background for them. And credit to behindthename.com, that's where I got most of the meanings from. If it wasn't on Behind the Name, though, I did go to Nameberry or other sources on the internet. So the first one is Zenobia, which was given to 5 girls in 1883. It's a Greek name meaning life of Zeus, from Xenos meaning of Zeus, and Bios meaning life. It was recorded as early as 1881 with 6 occurrences, and as recently as 2022 with 32 occurrences. The name Hannibal was given to 5 boys in 1885, and you can probably guess why this one caught my eye if you've seen my other videos, but it's a Phoenician name meaning grace of ball. And there was a guy named Hannibal Barca who threatened Rome during the Second Punic War. And it's also the name of the character Hannibal Lecter, Hannibal the Cannibal, who was created in Thomas Harris's 1981 novel Red Dragon. And you've probably heard of Hannibal Lecter even if you haven't read those books because they've like all been adapted in movies. Probably most famously Silence of the Lambs, where he's played by Anthony Hopkins, and also the show Hannibal, where he's portrayed by Mads Mikkelsen. But this name was recorded as early as 1885 with 5, and as recently as 2021 with 18 boys. The name Zilpha was given to 5 girls in 1887. It's a variant of Zilpah, meaning frailty in Hebrew, and appearing in the Old Testament. This particular spelling was recorded as early as 1880 with 6, and as recently as 1943, also with 6. Then there's the name Nimrod, which I forgot to write down when I found it, but the original meaning is kind of unknown, but the meaning hunter was adopted after the biblical character who was a hunter. However, it came to mean fool after Elmer Fudd, seen here, who was a hunter, got called a Nimrod by another like Looney Tunes character. It's recorded as early as 1880 with 5, and as recently as 2012 with 6. The name Cola was given to 10 girls in 1895. It's an Old English name given to someone with dark features, and it means charcoal. It was recorded as early as 1894 with 6, and as recently as 1947 with 11. The name Texana was given to 5 girls in 1898. it means of Texas and is literally just Texan and then like a feminine ending, the A sound. And Texas became a state in 1845, so that's long before the data set starts, but it was recorded as early as 1881 with 5, and as recently as 1991 with also 5. The name Darthula, or maybe Darthula, I couldn't find a pronunciation for this one, but it was given to 5 girls in 1900. It's a variant of Dorthula, or from a poem by James Macpherson. It's also about 5 variants away from Dorthelia, which is the combination of Dorothy and Celia. It was recorded as early as 1884 with 5, and as recently as 1934 with 7. I just want to show you what I mean when I say it's like 5 variants away. Here's the name Darthula. It's a variant of Dorthula, variant of Dorthulia, variant of Dorthelia, possibly a combination of Dorothy and Celia. Then I came across the name Pocahontas, which was given to 5 girls in 1904. It means little playful one in Powhatan, which is the Virginia East Coast indigenous peoples. Pocahontas is the name of a woman who married a white colonist and died in England, and is also the name of the Disney princess that romanticized the story in 1995. And here's a picture, well, I guess an illustration, they didn't have photography back then, of the real Pocahontas. It's recorded as early as 1897 with 7, and as recently as 2022 with 5. Now, we already went over Hermione a little bit, but it was given to 7 girls in 1913, and is derived from the name Hermes, who is the Greek messenger god, and Hermes means cairn. Hermione is also the name of a character in the Harry Potter series, first released in 1997. It was recorded as early as 1898 with 6, and as recently as 2022 with 115. The name Virgin was given to 6 girls in 1915 and 5 boys in 1928. It's from the word virgin, meaning purity, and it seems to be a Puritan name, as they have a lot of names like this. It's a virtue name, I think is what it is. So they have also names like abstinence, or the ones that are still around today are faith, hope, joy, names like that. It's recorded as early as 1895 with 5 girls, and as recently as 1982 with 5 girls. The name Orange was given to 9 boys in 1938. And while it's originally a medieval feminine name, though it was spelled differently, as a fruit, the name comes from the Sanskrit word for orange tree. It was recorded as early as 1881 with 9 boys, and as recently as 1971 with 5 boys. The name Icy was given to 5 girls in 1943, and is a diminutive of the name Bernice, which is also spelled as Icy, I-C-I-E, and this spelling may come from the word as well. It may be influenced by it. It was recorded as early as 1880 with 5, and as recently as 2021 with 8. The name Moana was given to 11 girls in 1956. It's a Polynesian name that refers to the ocean in several different languages, and it's also the name of a Disney princess in a 2016 movie. And if you've seen the movie, then it's an incredibly fitting name for this character, as she can, like, control the water, literally. It was recorded as early as 1941 with 8, and as recently as 2022 with 44. The name Zebulon was given to 5 boys in 1970, and it's a variant of Zebulun, a Hebrew name meaning exalted house. It was recorded as early as 1891 with 6 boys, and as recently as 2022 with 19 boys. The name Valentine was given to 5 girls in 1974. It's from a Roman surname Valentinus, meaning strong or healthy, and it was also the name of a saint, whose feast was on the same day as the fertility festival Lupercalia, which formed a connection between Valentine and love, which is why we celebrate St. Valentine's Day. And while it's a common feminine name in France, it's more common as a masculine name in the United States. However, I found it as a girl's name, and as a girl's name, it was recorded as early as 1885 with 10, and as recently as 2022 with 56. The name Waukesha was given to 5 girls in 1979. It's a Potawatomi word for fox, and pronounced by the Chippewa as Wagusha, with like a G sound opposed to a K sound. I will add some less trustworthy sources say it means clean water, but the Wisconsin Historical Society says it means fox, and I'm gonna trust that one over Quora. It's also a county in Wisconsin, highlighted here. In Wisconsin, especially southeastern Wisconsin, is where Potawatomi and Chippewa people live. It was recorded as early as 1978 with 8, and as recently as 1983 with 7. Okay, I was looking it up because I was curious, and it doesn't seem that Waukesha is necessarily like a name as much as it is just a word, which does make me wonder if these very, very few girls that were given the name Waukesha are like from Waukesha County or from the area. This kind of makes me wonder that. The name Zhivago was given to 5 boys in 1980. It's from a Russian surname meaning life, but some places on the internet do give other meanings. It's a little hard to find. And it's also the name of a character in the 1965 movie Dr. Zhivago. It was recorded only in 1980 with 5 boys. So in all these names, I somehow managed to find the only occurrence of Zhivago, which it actually wasn't that hard to find considering it was at the very, very bottom of the 1980 column. The name Jezebel was given to 5 girls in 1984, and this is the Spanish and Portuguese spelling of Jezebel from a Phoenician name meaning to dwell. It's also the name of a Bible character who is portrayed as evil and is ultimately defenestrated and eaten by dogs. This one caught my eye because I knew about the dog thing from an episode of Criminal Minds, and that's why my brain was drawn to it, because I knew that name. It was recorded as early as 1979 with 6, and as recently as 2022 with 6. And I will add, compared to the, I don't know if it's like the English spelling of Jezebel, but compared to this spelling of Jezebel, it does seem to be more common these days. The name Bethlehem was given to 5 girls in 1992, and it's the name of the city where Jesus was born. And in Hebrew, Bethlehem means house of bread. This comes from the Hebrew words bayit meaning house, and lechem meaning bread. It's recorded as early as 1985 with 5, and as recently as 2022 with 7. And we're back to Pebbles, which was given to 7 girls in 2001. And again, a pebble is literally just a small rock, but it is also the name of the baby Flintstone. It's recorded as early as 1963 with 31, and as recently as 2014 with 7. And it's one of those names where I gotta say, like, you're not just naming a baby, you're naming an adult in 30 years. Don't name your kid Pebbles. That'd be a good name for a cat, though. The name Zizix was given to 5 boys in both 2010 and 7 in 2018. It's a place name in California that was invented to be lost in the dictionary, hence the 2 Z's, the Y, the other Z, and the X. The name D'Artagnan was given to 27 boys in 2015, meaning from Artagnan in French. D'Artagnan is the name of a character in the 1884 novel, The Three Musketeers. He isn't a musketeer, but he does befriend them. And the most recent English movie adaptation before 1960, when it first showed up, was in 1953, but there was one right after it in 1961, and so it was recorded as early as 1960 and as recently as 2022, with 16. The name Twiggy was given to 12 girls in 1967, and this is the nickname of a very skinny model who was famous in the 1960s. She achieved international fame in 1967 after appearing on the cover of Vogue, which does coincide with the birth of these 12 girls. And here is the July 1967 cover, and it was only recorded in that year with only those 12. And this one I actually searched for because thinking about those boys named Wood made me wonder if they had like a sibling named Twig, and then I remembered Twiggy existed, and I thought like maybe she had enough of an impact to cause girls to be named Twiggy, and sure enough she did, just in that one year. Then the name Oluwatobiloba was given to 7 girls in 2014. It's a Nigerian and Yoruba name, meaning the Lord is great as king, and it's used by Christian parents, so referring to the Christian Lord. And I kept seeing names beginning with Oluwa in both male and female names, so I wanted to search what the first part meant, and Oluwa means God in Yoruba. This name was recorded as early as 2003 with 5, and as recently as 2018 with 8. And here I have a couple other names that I found that had that same Oluwa element in them, and because I just kept seeing it, I wanted to know what it meant. Also, finding this name and the resulting Google searches led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole of Yoruba and Nigerian naming conventions, which led me to these next 2 names. So reading about those Nigerian and Yoruba naming conventions led me to these 2 names, Taiwo and Kehinde, and it seems that these names are commonly given to twins in that culture, with Taiwo meaning first to taste the world being given to the firstborn twin, and Kehinde, secondborn of the twins, being given to the secondborn twin. Now, Taiwo was recorded as early as 1972 for boys with 7 boys, and as recently as 2019 for girls with 6 girls. Kehinde was recorded as early as 1977 for boys, and as recently as 2022 for boys. And overall, there have been 63 girls, 107 and 147 boys named Taiwo, popping up in 33 total years across both genders, resulting in 210 babies overall. And with Kehinde, there have been 97 girls and 168 boys named Kehinde, popping up in 43 total years across both genders, with 265 babies overall. And I'm not an expert on Yoruba naming conventions. I just spent like 15 minutes reading about it online, but I do find it interesting that the numbers are so similar, given that it seems these names are often given to twins. But what I find more interesting is that the name given to the second twin is more common, and I don't know if maybe these names are sometimes used as a middle name in this culture, if it's like always the first name or how that works. I do find it interesting that they're similar, but the second-born twin name is higher. Also, this is Kehinde Wiley, who is an awesome artist who did like Obama's presidential portrait, and I looked him up, and he does have a twin. I don't know their name, but it's presumably Taiwo. And finally, here's the rest of the names that didn't really have enough information to warrant a whole slide. So Wood is just from the surname, Spurgeon from the surname with meaning unknown, Granny is just a nickname used as a given name, Speed is a surname meaning success, Wava had no results, Wing is unknown, but according to behind the name, it's Canadian, Hershey is a surname meaning from Hershey, Normandy. Welcome is from the word, that's another Puritan name. Catherine or possibly Catherine produced no results, but if I had to guess, maybe it's just a combo of Catherine and Caroline. Loveless is coming from the surname, meaning without love. Vanilla is literally just from the word. Selmadine produced no results, but I think that one sounds really cool. Philistine or maybe Philistine produced no results. Maybe it's just a combination of the word Philistine, meaning uncultured, and the name Phyllis, or maybe it's just Phyllis with a teen on the end for fun. Well, William produced no results either, and I don't really know why there's two W's, but it seems too old to be a typo. Bernadette produced no results, but if I had to guess, probably just a feminized version of the name Vern or an alternative to Bernadette. The name Nixon is from the surname, meaning son of Nick, and Weatherly is also just from the surname. So, in conclusion, if you really want to be unique, name your kid Wisconsin, Delaware, or Cinderella. Those are my 3 suggestions for you. Also, side note, none of the non-graph pictures in this presentation are mine, and no copyright infringement is intended. Most are from Wikipedia. So there you have it. That's all, like 78 slides of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something cool about names or name trends. If you like this video, I do have several other videos on my channel, most of which are data analysis of crime shows, but all of which are data. So subscribe if you want to see more data videos. And thank you for watching.